pregnancy is just a bit of a belly bump, right? You always overreact. If you're a housewife, do more around the house. We're out of beer, get 3 boxes. The words my husband hurled at me, who is close to giving birth, were honestly terrible. I've been living with him since the early stages of pregnancy. But it seems he lacks the awareness of being a father. For the sake of this child, his presence might no longer be necessary. I'm just a normal housewife living in California. 2 years have passed since I got married, and now I'm pregnant. After getting married, I had no choice but to become a full-time housewife at my husband's strong request. But in truth, I wanted to continue working. So, in the beginning, I had days filled with various dissatisfactions and confusions. Do I really have to be a full-time housewife? All my friends are working and managing well. We could just share the housework. I work at a major company, so I'm concerned about how others perceive me. Even though I earn a high salary, if we both work, it might affect my chances of promotion. According to my husband, he couldn't accept the idea of his wife working because he was worried about public perception. However, in this day and age, both partners working is a common choice. And my working would hardly affect his promotion. I thought my husband was worrying too much, but he wouldn't listen to my opinion. Still, I decided to push a bit further and express my feelings. But I want to continue working, and I think it can contribute to our household finances. I don't think there's any need to tell my colleagues at the company. Wouldn't you be embarrassed when I introduce you to my family? Well, as long as you handle the housework as a housewife, that's enough. Protecting the family is a man's responsibility, right? Just leave it to me. I had some dissatisfaction with my husband, who held old-fashioned values. But I still managed the housework flawlessly as a housewife. My husband seemed proud of me for that, often inviting his work colleagues to our home and boasting about me. I really have a great wife. She even prepared delicious snacks today, thinking of you all. You guys seem so close, I'm envious. You've got such a wonderful wife, you need to work harder and keep her happy for life. Not just the boss, but also juniors and peers often came over for drinks. So I was up late many nights. But as a wife supporting her husband, I found it gratifying. Then one day, my pregnancy was confirmed. I was moved to tears, thrilled about the child we had long awaited. It's the child we've been waiting for. I'm so happy. Finally, our family is going to grow. Can't wait. My husband was overjoyed like a child. And we spent our days filled with anticipation and happiness for the new life we were about to welcome. For a while, I carried on with the household chores normally, but after about a month, morning sickness began. Since it was my first pregnancy, I didn't expect it to be this tough. Conveniently, my husband was off work that day. He might be tired from his daily work. But I was feeling particularly unwell due to severe morning sickness. So I decided to ask him for help. I'm sorry to ask, but I'm really struggling with morning sickness today. I feel so sluggish. Just the bare minimum housework is fine. Can you take care of it today? You can order takeout for meals. What? You're kidding, right? Kidding? What do you mean? You seriously think that? Are you trying to force me to do the housework? No, I'm not trying to force you, but it's just that I'm having a hard time with morning sickness today. Isn't that just an excuse? Morning sickness isn't a valid reason to neglect housework, is it? I work hard every day to earn money. Housework isn't my responsibility. No, but I really can't stand people who try to shirk their responsibilities like this, thinking they can just make excuses. Besides, ordering takeout is more expensive than cooking, so cook properly, okay? Despite my complaints of morning sickness, my husband insisted I do the housework as usual. It's true that men can't experience pregnancy or understand the pain of morning sickness physically, which I understand. Still, it's incomprehensible to be dismissed when I'm expressing how tough I feel. A quick search online could have made him understand the hardships of morning sickness. But he remained indifferent. Lying down in disbelief, my husband came to me, looking annoyed. How long are you going to pretend to be sick and rest? Prepare everything for tonight. My boss is coming over for drinks at our house. I was at a loss for words. How does he see me as a pregnant woman? However, he did invite his boss over. And I had to prepare food while feeling like I could collapse at any moment. My husband didn't help me at all, even as I reached the 10th month of pregnancy. It had been truly difficult. Even as my belly grew, his attitude remained unchanged from before my pregnancy. This was the situation as we entered the new year. It was decided that we would spend New Year's Eve at my husband's parents' house, with all his relatives. Naturally, I wanted to go back to my parents' house, but my husband opposed it. Hey, don't you have any nicer clothes? Relatives are gathering, and it's embarrassing to be seen with you dressed like that. But, with my belly this big, loose clothes are more comfortable. My husband looked down on me as if I were insignificant. Sure, I might not look beautiful, but isn't that expected for a pregnant woman? I had no expectations from him, but the end of the year left me feeling uncomfortable. After a long 3-hour train journey, we arrived at my in-laws' house. Cheers. The last toast of the year. As soon as we arrived, my husband started drinking with the people who had arrived earlier. My in-laws and other relatives were considerate of my pregnancy. But my husband just kept drinking. Since I couldn't drink due to my pregnancy, I didn't join the drinking session and relaxed in a room my in-laws provided. And then, hey, what are you resting for in a place like this? Everyone else is gathered in the living room. And here you are resting alone. Don't you think that's inconsiderate? Even if I go to the living room, I can't drink alcohol. And I'm exhausted from the train ride today. I'm not interested in such excuses. Well, if you're resting here, you must be free, right? We're out of beer, so go buy some now. Huh? 3 boxes should be enough, hurry up, will you? Are you listening? I was surprised to hear such words from my husband, even though he was drunk. However, everyone in the living room was enjoying their drinks, and I couldn't disturb them. The atmosphere wasn't right to ask someone else for help. And I couldn't just ignore my husband's request, more like an order. Sighing, I said, all right, I'll go buy it now. Hearing that, my husband returned to the living room, and I rushed out to buy the beer. Hey, where are you going at this hour? It's late, are you sure you're all right? I'm just going out to buy something, I'll be back soon, so don't worry. My father-in-law seemed concerned about me. But eager not to anger my husband, I quickly left. I hurried to the store, thinking I might get scolded by my husband if I didn't return quickly. Perhaps that rush was a bad idea. About 5 minutes after stepping outside, sudden labor pains struck. And I couldn't move from the spot. Overwhelmed by intense pain, I battled it alone. Unable to call out due to the severity of the pain and with everyone in the living room. No one noticed my distress. Lying there on the dark street, I felt my consciousness fading away. Not just the agony of the pain, but also the fear of being found. Or worse, left alone outside in the cold enveloped me. Fortunately, about 10 minutes later, I saw my father-in-law rushing towards me. Hey, what's wrong? It's dangerous on the streets at night, and with you being pregnant? I was even more worried. While expressing his concern, my father-in-law quickly understood the situation and arranged for an ambulance. In my dazed state, I felt relieved by his help and started regaining consciousness. I'm having labor pains. It's so painful. Don't worry, I've called an ambulance. I'll inform my son right now. No, please don't do that. Don't contact my husband yet, please. As I conveyed these words, my consciousness faded again, but fortunately, the ambulance arrived quickly, and I was taken to the hospital. And there, I was able to give birth to a healthy baby boy. The birth was a week earlier than expected, but fortunately, the baby was healthy. And I couldn't help but cry with joy and emotion. However, after the birth, only my father-in-law and mother-in-law were standing in front of my hospital room. I'm sorry to interrupt the party, and thank you for coming all this way. That's all right. But how's the baby? Is everything okay? Yes, a baby boy was born safely. I'm grateful. You seem to be losing consciousness. I was really worried about what would happen. I remember my wife suffered through labor pains too. It brought back those memories? But, are you sure it's okay not to contact our son? She said not to contact him while she was suffering from labor pains. There must be a special reason, so I followed her request. Yes, I did say that. My in-laws seemed quite concerned about why I didn't want to contact my husband. It might be difficult for them to understand, but there were several reasons behind my decision. His drunken state was partly to blame. And although he was really looking forward to the baby's birth in the early stages of the pregnancy, that seemed to have faded recently. In the early stages of the pregnancy, he was really looking forward to the baby's birth. We were so happy together. But about a month later, his attitude changed. When morning sickness started, he got angry, saying it was just an excuse for laziness. What? Saying morning sickness is an excuse. He can say that because he's never experienced it. I'm so sorry you had to go through this. Even when my belly began to show and I gained a little weight, he said I was overreacting and as a housewife, I should do all the housework. He didn't help me at all, even though I was pregnant. I thought about going back to my parents' house, but he said if I, as a housewife, wasn't home, who would take care of the housework? So, it wasn't easy to just leave. That's why I wanted to test something. Test what? I went out to buy beer because he asked me to, but I also wanted to see his reaction. I thought maybe if I didn't come back right away, he would get worried and come looking for me. Especially since the due date was close, and he knew that. In that situation, this idea came to my mind. You mean, that foolish son of mine told you to go shopping? On such a cold night. She's supposed to be resting, what on earth was that fool thinking? I thought something was off. I told my son you didn't have to return to your parents' house because of the pregnancy. Oh? I didn't know that. You wouldn't be able to relax in such a noisy place. We knew you were already 10 months pregnant. And our house is quite far. Even if you took a taxi, I thought the journey would be too hard. No, I didn't use a taxi, I came here by train. Because it costs less money, he said. That foolish man. I'm truly sorry for what happened. I need to apologize too. I'm really sorry. So, did you get any message from that fool? I checked a while ago, but no, there's been no contact yet. Understood. May we handle the situation from here? His irresponsibility reflects on us as his parents too. We'll make sure he takes responsibility. I'd like to hear more. Is it okay if I stay here for a while? Yes, of course. After that, my father-in-law went back home, and my mother-in-law stayed with me, listening to my story. I had been suffering from my husband's moral harassment for a long time, and kept silent not to worry my family. Naturally, I had never mentioned it to my in-laws. But the emotions I had been holding inside gradually grew. and I slowly found the courage to speak up. The next morning, my parents and my in-laws came to visit me in the hospital. Congratulations on your delivery. You really did well. Thank you, Mom. Afterward, we went to see the baby and had a relaxed chat. When we returned to my room, my father-in-law, who had been silent until then, started to speak. Is it time to bring him in? Yes, please go ahead. With that, my father-in-law briefly left the room and then returned. Behind him, I saw my husband with a swollen face. Congratulations on the birth. I'm a father now, huh? I need to do my best for the family from now on. The moment he said that, my father-in-law, without a moment's hesitation, slapped him across the face. My husband stood with a shocked expression, and silence fell over the room. Then, breaking the silence, my father-in-law began to speak. More importantly, isn't there something you should be saying? No. I mean, sorry. I didn't mean to bully you. I just didn't understand the hardship of pregnancy. Such excuses are unnecessary. How many times do I have to say it? You foolish man. As soon as my husband opened his mouth, my father-in-law's face turned red with anger. When I was young, and your father too, we were in the same position. But isn't it natural for a husband, especially when his wife is pregnant, to support her as a husband and partner? Can't you even do the basics as a husband? When you came for the wedding proposal, you said, I work at a big company, so you can leave your daughter to me with confidence. Earning money isn't the only role of a husband. No, I didn't mean it like that, but your actions say exactly that. Don't you realize it? While my father-in-law continued to scold my husband, my parents also gave him cold stares. Unable to contain their anger any longer, they both began to loudly express their anger towards him. For about 30 minutes, my husband was reprimanded by all four of them, including my mother-in-law. Finally, my father-in-law physically removed my husband from the hospital room. Actually, after he arrived home yesterday, he asked our son about you. Then he said something like, she must have gone out to buy something at the convenience store because she was hungry. You know. He got furious and beat him up right there. I didn't know that happened. Such behavior is not acceptable, but we'll make sure he takes responsibility. While saying this to me, my mother-in-law apologized again to my parents and me, then left the room. I had told her about my parents' visit, but she probably didn't expect such a commotion. After 5 days in the hospital, I was discharged and immediately returned to my parents' home. Following a request from my in-laws, I left the baby with my parents and went to their house. Sorry to have you come all this way. No, it's not a problem. I really am sorry. You seem to have more bruises on your face than before, or is it just my imagination? Don't worry, I didn't do it. My brothers were a bit, let's say, thorough. I wonder if brothers who grow up under the same roof end up alike. He received a tough punishment like iron. My husband looked exhausted from the past 5 days, having faced relentless criticism from relatives other than his father. Hearing this, I felt a bit relieved. It's clear who was wrong in this situation. I really want to apologize. I'm reflecting on my actions. You won't change. Please, forgive me. I can't. What? I intend to divorce you, and you won't see the child. As I said this, my husband's face showed shock, and he seemed frozen. Of course, this was a plan I had already discussed with my in-laws, and decided upon immediately after giving birth. I couldn't let my child be raised by such a man. I will claim damages for the moral harassment I've endured and child support as well. Also, I plan to explain the situation to your colleagues at the company since I've been involved with them. What are you talking about? I'm not considering divorce. And please don't tell anyone at work. But you often brought your colleagues home and announced my pregnancy. And they were happy and supportive, right? I can't just get divorced silently and not explain anything, can I? If that happens, my position at the company will be jeopardized. What are you saying at a time like this? This is all your responsibility. I tried to raise you as a good son. But I never imagined you'd become like society's trash. You'll probably spend the rest of your life regretting this. But that's... And about the divorce, what about the child? I haven't even held him yet. I can't forgive someone who pretends to be a father, but didn't support me through my first pregnancy and childbirth. What you did was not just irresponsibly fathering a child, but you've also deeply hurt me. Stop pretending to be a father. Ugh. That's all from me for now. I'll leave the rest to your father and mother. Sorry to have you come all this way. My husband, looking defeated and slightly hyperventilating, held his head in his hands. I ignored his condition and returned to my parents' house. I sent the completed divorce papers to my in-laws. And my father-in-law made sure my husband submitted them. Later, he returned to his parents' house and was placed under their supervision for a period. Any shortfall in alimony and child support was covered by my in-laws. And my husband will be monitored until he finishes the payments. I have confirmed the transfer of the damages and child support. Thank you for everything until the end. We've caused you trouble until the end. I'm really sorry. We will make sure that foolish son reflects thoroughly. His salary will go towards repaying me. And he won't have any free time, so he should learn his lesson. Thank you. My in-laws continued to support me after the divorce. And promised to take strict measures against my ex-husband. He expressed a wish to see his son at least once, but I ignored his request. I plan not to let him meet our son until he's an adult and decides to see him on his own. Since I had a close relationship with my ex-husband's boss and his family, I knew their contact information. After revealing everything to his boss, my ex-husband's reputation at work declined. And he seems to face difficulties in his job. I'm living at my parents' house for a while, supported by them and spending happy days with my son. The path of a single mother may be challenging, but I'm prepared to overcome any trials. It surely must be easier than living with my ex-husband.